People feeling like the light has just come. Now step by step away. Savannah. Light is gonna come. The birds have just begun. We will always take a stand for the people, for the land. For the animals. Let's go back to where kids across the land. Savannah. We'll never be alone, Savannah. counting stars, get it together. Your mind can't sleep when you let it serve. Now you wanna see me fall from a quarter mile. I can see you at the call. Let me tell you what I saw. Break it up, you'll see who had it all. You had it all. See you when you came home, 'cause you always try to hurt me, and that's so low. When I talk to you about it, you're in defense mode. Oh, 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 oh. How can we work on ourselves when you say no? Oh, 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 oh. I'll never go on like this, so don't you think you got me up, yeah. I can't seem to deal with this. You try so hard to pull me in. I'll never go on like this, so don't you think you got me up, yeah. I can't seem to deal with this. You try so hard to pull me in.
Got me hooked up. Pulling me in like a black hole, trapped in a grip and I can't break. Out of control and I can't feel. I'm full of my heart on my damn face, 'cause I ain't be nothing without her. I don't want no queen or no damn kingdom. Serving up hate with a cold vengeance. Fuck, but I hate her, we can't slay them. Yeah, she's got me hooked, I'm down, I ride. Leaving, she tried to kill me, I can see it in her eyes. Yeah, she's got me shook, this my demise. I'm bleeding, can someone heal me? I can't deal with no more lies.
I'll never go on like this, so don't you think you got me up, yeah. I can't seem to deal with this. You try so hard to pull me on me.
tower.